The NFL Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100 and get a $100 free bet at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Welcome, everyone, to the NFL Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Thursday, December 8th, currently 3:20 on the East Coast. Here to talk about NFL Week 14, the afternoon games on the schedule. And joining me to help me break down the betting card for NFL Week 14, you guys know him on the voice of the NBA Gambling Podcast, the WNBA Gambling Podcast, of course, the NFL Gambling Podcast, the Tennis Gambling Podcast. It's my main man, Scott, studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Nothing much. Doing pretty well. Looking forward to the small NBA card tonight and the Thursday night game. Kinda. There might be a Baker Mayfield sighting. We'll see. But either way, should be fun. Hopefully we'll make some money on that. I'm sure you have plays on that game as well. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about some Sunday action.
Yeah. As usual, getting into the afternoon games. 4 games only on the schedule for us this week. We had about 5 over the last couple of weeks, but we got some pretty good matches, a good Sunday night football game as well. So let's just dive right into it here, Scott. Got a couple of division matchups, or a lot of division matchups actually this week, and we got one here in the AFC West between the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos in the Mile High City. This line opened up in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs of -6.5. That number is currently sitting at -9 over on WynnBET. Total opened up at 42.5 and has actually been bet up to 44 in this game. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, let's start here with the road team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Looking at their injury report, currently seeing Nick Bolton, linebacker, was a limited participant on Wednesday in practice for them. Kadarius Toney continues to deal with a hamstring issue, was limited at practice on Wednesday. And Mecole Hardman, head coach Andy Reid said Wednesday that Hardman could return from injured reserve for the Chiefs Chiefs Week 15 game in Houston. Not this week, but hopefully they can get him back next week.
I'm sure you're thrilled about that game, seeing Mahomes against your favorite team.
Oh yeah, I might have to just get out there just see I can say that I saw or I got to see Mahomes play in my lifetime. Not like he's going anywhere anytime soon, but yeah, maybe I could go up there and watch him throw 500 yards against his team. For the Denver Broncos, place kicker Brian McManus didn't practice Wednesday due to a right quadriceps injury. And a whole bunch of, I think these are second or backup.
I think you meant Brandon, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brandon. What did I say?
You said Brian, I think.
Oh, Brian. Okay.
It doesn't matter. Whatever.
Jerry Jeudy also was questionable in practice on Wednesday, limited participant, and Courtland Sutton is actually doubtful to play this Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. But Scott, I mean, look, this Broncos team, we've talked about them ad volumes on the NFL Gambling Podcast. Nathaniel Hackett, by far the worst head coach in the entire football league. You have a Patrick Mahomes-led team coming into this game.
Awful loss.
Yeah, awful of a loss where I'll say this, that Patrick Mahomes in his career against teams in his division, the AFC West, he's a perfect 14-0. Straight up 9-5 against the spread against those AFC West teams. I don't think much is going to change here. I just don't think there's going to be enough points put up by this Denver Broncos offense. But what do you think about this game between the Chiefs and the Broncos?
So you mentioned Mahomes' record against the division. Do you know the recent streak the Chiefs are on, even dating back to Alex Smith? Do you know what their record is in the last 5-6 years against this team?
15-0. Let's make it a round about 20-0
against the Broncos only.
Yeah,
they are 13-0 in the last 13 games.
Okay, 13-0. Yeah,
they're 13-0. So if you want to talk about a rivalry game where usually these games are competitive and all that other narrative, not quite. Chiefs have dealt with altitude. They go in, they dominate, they leave. It's the same story every year. And this year, Denver's bad. especially bad. And offensively, they didn't score a touchdown last week against the Ravens. Russell Wilson, we know, has been atrocious because of injury, or maybe he's just old at this point. We don't really know for sure, but we know for a fact that he's a bottom 10 quarterback in the league, probably bottom 5 at this point. But the Chiefs are off a loss, very competitive game against a very good Cincinnati team. And the Chiefs, I think, will be hungry to get back on track. And if you want to talk about the Chiefs playing with their food, that's definitely a possibility. I do think being off a loss should limit that possibility, though. But I think that the Chiefs are going to walk in, score at least 3 touchdowns. Do we think Denver gets past 10 points? I don't know. I don't know for certain about that.
I'll say this much about the Broncos, to your point there, that they haven't scored more than 17 points. I'm sorry. I'll say they only scored 20 points just once in their home games so far this season. Again, a very small sample, but
if you want to go recent sample size also, you can look at the Chiefs and look at the Broncos. The Broncos have scored less than 17 points in 7 of their last 8 games.
I think it's telling, Scott, when they were only able to put up 17 points against the Houston Texans.
That's definitely telling. Even last week, I know Baltimore's defense is hit or miss. I know it was awful in Jacksonville, but for the most part, it's an okay unit.
Yeah.
But Baltimore couldn't move the ball. Denver had a ton of possessions the entire game.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do anything the entire game. They scored no touchdown. So I think the Chiefs off a loss will definitely be motivated to not just win, but to win comfortably in this spot. I'll lay the 9. Denver's a complete lost cause. They have nothing to play for. We saw them lose to Carolina by 20. Like I don't know how they're supposed to really keep pace here. I get Kansas City's defense isn't great. I understand that. But Denver's offense is the worst offense in the league. They're averaging like less than or around 14 points per game. I think Kansas City scores at least 24 in this game.
Yeah, and I think that's the magic number, right? If they get to 24, they're going to win this game.
20 could be the magic number here to cover. Like, I really don't know how many points Denver's going to score, no matter how bad the defense is, because you said before they could barely score against Houston.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of looking at it, like you mentioned, Denver, they're offensively just not very good.
They're dead last in points per game.
Yeah, and everything. And that's kind of, tells you everything that you need to know. And like I mentioned, Courtland Sutton probably not going to be in this game either. I think it's just going to be a matter of
Judy might not play either.
Yeah. So how do you score points in this game? So I agree with you. I'll go with you with the Kansas City Chiefs here. I don't love it, but I think I just like the under more in this game, even though this number has been bet up from the opening number. I could see a 24-10 type of final in this game.
And Denver's defense is good. You're hoping that they can at least limit the big plays that Kansas City has, and you'll end up getting a bit of a punt fest there. And Kansas City might go up a lot early, do their classic fourth quarter drain clock strategy, and really just limit the possessions. But at the end of the day, you're just looking at a Denver team that cannot score. So I agree with you on the under. Denver unders have been basically free money the entire season.
Yeah.
But I do think the Chiefs being off a loss definitely helps my willingness to lay 9 on the road in a division game. I know historically you should pretty much blindly back the home team in the spot, but I can't do it here. Denver is historically bad offensively, and the Chiefs, once again, still have a very good offense. It's not as good without Tyreek Hill, but it's still a very solid unit. And Cincinnati's a very good team. Denver's not. So I'm not going to overreact to what happened last week. Sure. And the Chiefs will be hungry, and I think they'll win their 14th straight against Denver.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think I might tease down the Chiefs just because Patrick Mahomes, as a 7-point favorite or more on the road in his career, he is 7-0 straight up, but he's only 1-6 against the spread in that span. And then Mahomes in his career as a 5-point favorite on the road in his career, 15-0 straight up, just 8-7 against the spread. So I think this might be a good teaser leg for teaser players out there. And if you want to, if you need a obviously a teaser leg, you can do that. So and then a couple more notes. Mahomes in the month of November, December in his career, 32-5 straight up, but just 17, 18-2 against the spread. So I think that, Chiefs may, like you mentioned, maybe play with their food here a little bit. I do think they get the victory. And there's a window where just because the Denver Nuggets are so inept on offense that it
Broncos.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the Broncos. I'm sorry.
They wish they had Jokic a wide receiver. That's all I'll say. But,
the Broncos
or a quarterback, actually. They wish they had Jokic a quarterback.
That 21 points, like we mentioned, might just be enough. But I think that, 24, it's not a look ahead spot for the Kansas City Chiefs either. It's just get the victory, get out of there, go beat Houston next week. And then, hopefully we can secure a number one seed in the AFC. So under is probably my more favorite play. And I'll throw a couple more trends out there for the under in this game. And their last, I think dating back their last 29 games, the under is 23-6 in the Broncos games, and their home games this season for the Broncos are only averaging 28 points per game. And you already mentioned it, Scott, that Broncos are pretty much free money towards the under. 11-1 on the under this season. Division games, throw that stat out there as well this season. 70, 44-2 to the under in the entire NFL this season. So some more trends and numbers back in the under there. Player props you may be looking at in this game, if anything, Scott?
Well, even though we talked about Mahomes and I expect him to play well, I do kind of have to look at Pacheco for rushing yards.
Yeah.
Denver, despite being a very good defense in general and points allowed, etc., they really have not been great against the run this season. Now, Pacheco's at 63.5, which, I mean, it makes sense the number's gone up because the Chiefs clearly like him. He's looked really good. I mean, there's no way around it. Do you think 63.5 is too high? Or do you think it's like where it should be? I don't know. I kind of wish it was still in the 50s, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems a tad high, but again, if you kind of just look over the last 4 weeks, what you mentioned that they do love this guy. He's getting the carries. He's had at least 14 carries in over the last 4 weeks for the Chiefs. He's gone 66, 69, 107, and 82. So it just seems like it might just be an adjustment that the books have finally made where we were used to seeing, that number for Pacheco being in the 50s.
Yeah, I don't really have many props besides that because I'm trying to look at props for receivers for Kansas City. I mean, half of them don't exist. I don't really see any props at the moment. I see receptions for Juju, or I see longest reception for Juju, but not total yards, which doesn't really make any sense. But the point is, I don't really see much. So I think maybe if I had to lean to one guy, maybe it would be like Valdez-Scantling, longest reception over 18.5. Okay. I'm trying to think who Surtain would guard, because Juju's more of a slot guy.
Yeah.
Do you put Surtain on Kelsey? Like, what do you
That was going to be my question. Yeah. I think usually lines
up
on
try something.
Yeah. So I think that might open up opportunities for guys like you mentioned. If Juju's able to go in this game, he was out on the injury report. Obviously, he's back.
I said Scantling maybe because he's more of a deep play guy, but he also has not been very good this year.
Noah Gray, maybe.
If I'm saying, like, I don't really have many options because Kansas City, they score points because Mahomes is great, but you look at the talent or lack thereof in the receiving core, it's really not great. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I agree. I was trying to see if they had a number of rush attempts for Pacheco in this game. Don't see it listed yet, but yeah, I think the game script is probably going to be, hey, maybe they get ahead to a lead and they start running the football like with Pacheco, like you mentioned. They like to drain that clock in that fourth quarter when they are up, if it's by multiple possessions in this game. So I think that Chiefs should get an ugly win here. Game should go under. Anything else for this game, Scott?
Yeah, actually, for a player prop, I know he has not thrown many interceptions this year, but I'm still going to throw it out there. You can argue Mahomes because Mahomes definitely should throw the ball a decent amount.
Sure.
Russell Wilson's plus 105. Like, I understand the argument is that he has not thrown many this season. He's thrown 0 in the last 3 games. But aren't you blindly assuming the pass attempts are going to be through the roof because they should be trailing for about 2 quarters?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the
plus money
there. Yeah, you mentioned.
I mean, I gave it out a couple of weeks ago with the Aaron Rodgers prop against the Bills. It was a decent plus price bet there, and I figured Green Bay's probably going to get killed in this game.
Yeah.
They're going to have to throw the ball a bunch. Like, Wilson might have to throw the ball 40 times, so I don't mind interception. Maybe for both quarterbacks here because we know that Mahomes can be a little bit loose with the football. Mahomes is minus 105. I don't really mind the interception prop for both guys here. You?
Yeah, I don't mind it either. I mean, we've seen Patrick Mahomes more than at least Russell Wilson so far this season, where he's throwing for interceptions, and he's thrown one at least in 3 out of the last 5 games. Let me see how many times he's done it against the Broncos. So he's faced them. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. He's throwing 4 interceptions. So almost seems like only every other game he's throwing one. But
did he throw one last game?
Last game was back on January 8th. He did not.
Okay, so we're on pace. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
but
at the price, I think it's definitely worth a dabble.
it's mostly about the pass attempts. I'm just assuming both
Yeah,
quarterbacks are going to try to throw the ball 30 plus times. Denver, out of necessity, the Chiefs might try to run, but at the end of the day, you still have Mahomes, and you will definitely want him to do most of the heavy lifting for your team.
yeah. And again, there's always the possibility where you have those end of game Hail Marys, whether it's just a Wilson or even end of half, where
You go no huddle, you attempt
yeah,
like 8 passes on one drive, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right, let's move over to the next game of the afternoon. It's going to be let's go to Seattle, where the Carolina Panthers are going to be visiting the Seattle Seahawks. It's going to be a 4:25 Eastern start. Looking at the lines for this game, the Seattle Seahawks opened up actually as a 7-point favorite in this game. That number has now been bet to -4 in favor of the Seattle Seahawks. Total opened up at 43.5. That number has been bet up to 44. Starting to see some 44.5s pop up as well. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, to start here with the Carolina Panthers. Starting quarterback is going to be Sam Darnold for the Carolina Panthers in this game. But as far as injuries go, for the Panthers, let's see here. Dante Foreman is officially questionable for this game. He did, I think, come out and say today that he was going to play in this game, but he is
He's
battling.
going to play, but I'm assuming there will be some type of timeshare with Hubbard.
Yeah,
If I had to
yeah.
guess.
He was limited on Thursday in practice with like I mentioned, a foot injury. Xavier Wood, safety, questionable, limited on practice on Wednesday. And that is pretty much it for the Carolina Panthers. For the home team, the Seattle Seahawks, let's see here. Ryan Neal, safety, was a non-participant at practice on Wednesday. He's dealing with a knee issue. Will Dissly, tight end, also questionable, dealing with a calf injury, non-participant on Wednesday as well.
They have seven tight ends anyway. I don't know if
Yeah. Marquise Goodwin, wide receiver, dealing with a hand issue. He didn't practice on Wednesday. Travis Homer, running back, questionable, limited participant on Wednesday as well. And throw in DJ Dallas, did not participate in practice on Wednesday. And Kenneth Walker, ankle, did not participate in practice on Wednesday either. So looks like the backfield there is a little banged up there, Scott, but DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, all should be a go in this game. Carolina heads to Seattle, East Coast team heading over to the West Coast, led by Sam Darnold. What are you thinking about this game here, Scott? Seattle as a 4-point home favorite.
I actually like Carolina money line in this game.
Okay.
I'm going to go a little bit bold here. First of all, they're off a bye.
Yeah.
I like the back teams off a bye getting points, just generally. I think that you have an extra week of prep. I think it's a big deal. The Seahawks had a nice win that they needed to have. The problem is they almost lost to John Wolford and the Rams. And the Rams are really, really bad. Yes. The Seahawks were really in desperation mode. They needed a come from behind game-winning drive by Geno there down the stretch. I don't think Seattle looks good. Offensively, they're really good. That's a given. Defensively, they're awful. And I know they have a very good rookie who gets a bunch of interceptions. Besides that, though, their pass rush has been pretty much non-existent lately. Their linebacking core, I don't think is very good. And the rest of their secondary is not very good. Yeah. So they really have one defensive player that I basically like on the entire team. I'm going to go Carolina. I think that the defense is good. I think I don't know if Horn plays a side or not, but I think he can at least contain either Metcalf or Lockett. And even though you might end up seeing the Seahawks be able to air it out a little bit at times in this game, Kenneth Walker, I'm assuming, is not going to play. That's a big deal because he was right now favored to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's a hell of a playmaker, and now they're going to have to use a third or fourth string running back because DJ Dallas is also injured. So they might be using Tony Jones Jr., which is really just tells you how really just bad the running depth is right now for the Seahawks. But I think Carolina's defensive line can really manhandle Seattle's offensive line during the course of this game. I think it'll be ugly, but you're going to give me a bad defense and a really banged up ground game and a questionable offensive line against the team off a bye. I'll take the points with the team off the bye. I think it's a good spot for Carolina. And Seattle, once again, needing a come-from-behind win against the Rams with a second or third string quarterback. Serious red flag for me. I'm going to go ahead and take Carolina.
This was going to be my contrarian play of the week, at least for this afternoon games. I'm there with you, and I think the concerns is all the injuries that they're dealing with are the Seattle Seahawks, right? Don't expect Kenneth Walker. Even their guys in the backfield with Travis Homer and DJ
I
Dallas.
didn't even mention Homer. That's true. Homer's also banged up, but
Yeah,
we talk about all the time in current NFL football that running backs are expendable and they don't really matter that much. When you're down roughly 3 running backs, I think it matters.
oh, yeah, 100%. And I think this might be a game where Geno Smith does struggle. Like you talked about, this Carolina Panthers defense has been pretty good this season. That pass rush as well. I think they'll be able to get to Geno Smith in this game. And the Seattle Seahawks may also be, I'm sorry, in a look ahead spot here. They have San Francisco on deck on Thursday night. So, and you mentioned Carolina coming off of the bye. A lot of people may think that at this point of the year, that teams coming from the East Coast to the West Coast are not in a favorable spot, I guess I can say. But a couple of more trends here. So road teams traveling from east to west, they're 62, 41, and 5 against the spread, 60% since 2016.
I'd be happy about traveling. It's not 20 degrees. Like you're
Yeah.
actually going to somewhat warmer weather. I'd be kind of happy going West Coast.
Yeah,
But
and also the teams that are under 500, like the Panthers, they are 35, 17, and 2 against the spread in that same span, 67%. So
and they're still in playoff contention because their division stinks.
yeah,
They
you're
can't
right.
even you can't even claim that like they don't care about the game. Like Carolina still hypothetically has
Yeah.
a shot to win the division.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but they have a
Mhm.
hypothetical chance at it.
Yeah, and you made the great point there as well that they did struggle last week against John Wolford and the Los Angeles Rams. So
That was bad. I know Wolford's stat line was like not great at the end, but the Rams
Yeah.
really moved the ball up and down pretty much the entire first half.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth quarter, it's a serious problem because Wolford was also injured during that game and he was still moving the ball.
I want to see how Sam Darnold did in his last game.
I'm not saying Darnold's great or good by any means, but I think he's better than Wolford. I think he can move the ball against this team.
Sure. Yeah. Look, against the Broncos, and again, it is the Broncos' good defense, right? He was 7 of 19, 164 yards, 1 touchdown. DJ Moore had a great game against the Broncos in there. I think he had a long pass where he caught. But Foreman, I'm hoping that Foreman's able to go in this game and he's able to be somewhat effective because when he's on the field,
by the way, Seattle's terrible against the run.
Yeah.
We didn't even mention that. They're really bad against the run.
Yeah. So 24 attempts, 113 yards against the Denver Broncos was Dante Foreman. And now Seattle, like you mentioned, they're going up against Carolina's this rushing attack. If Foreman's able to go, whether it's him or it's Chuba Hubbard, I think they'll have success on the ground here. I think that's where the way they can limit this Seattle, I guess, offense and keep DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett off the field. So I'm with you, man. I like the Carolina Panthers to cover the spread here. Any thoughts on the total here sitting at 44?
I'm looking at the under. I know it's tricky because I just roasted Seattle's defense for about 5 minutes, but Carolina's a great under team. They're going to try to run the ball a bunch. They're going to try to drain clock. And I think Seattle's offense is going to struggle because I'm not sure that they can actually protect Geno Smith in this game. I guess my question for you is, even if Foreman is compromised, I know he kind of came out of nowhere. He bounced around the league. I believe he used to be on your team. I think he was on the Texans a couple of years ago.
He was drafted by the Texans.
That's what I thought. He was like a 7th-round pick or something. But anyway, my question for you is, how big of a drop-off is there from Foreman to Hubbard? Is it that big of a drop-off? Because I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I don't think
Foreman's been very good. I think Hubbard can do enough against a bad rush defense.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype coming around Hubbard, coming out of college. And he had flashes, I think, in his rookie year where
one great year at Oklahoma State. Then he came back and he wasn't very good in his final year. And I believe he opted out early. But he's been meh in the pros. But Foreman bounced around to a bunch of different teams. He was basically a nothing until he showed up in Carolina.
Yeah, and he had some success last week on the ground as well. 17 carries. Did have 65 rushing yards, so only 3.8 yards per carry. But like you mentioned, this Seattle Seahawks rush defense is just, their defense overall is just not very good. So I think that the Panthers should have some success here. And look, Steve Wilkes has done a pretty damn good job. Panthers have won 3 of their last 4 games, so I don't think motivation is a factor here. And like you mentioned, there's still a contention for this division. I mean, look, the Buccaneers are facing the 49ers this
Mhm.
week. We'll get to the game in a second, but there's a possibility where
It's
this
doable.
it's doable, yeah, especially in that division. I had another question for you is that we're looking at this Seattle Seahawks team. Let's just say they drop this game. I'm currently seeing the Seattle Seahawks to miss the playoffs at plus 250.
I think that tie between Washington and New York last week was brutal for Seattle.
Yeah.
Like next level brutal for Seattle. And I know that
Mhm.
they play again after the bye, Washington
Yeah.
and New York, but the fact that neither team lost, I think, is really bad because
Yeah.
Seattle, if they end up falling apart down the stretch, that tie could really be the differential in win percentage.
Mhm.
I think that if you want to go for value, you can make an argument that if Seattle's plus 250 to miss the playoffs, but Carolina's like plus 150 to win the game, you might just be better off taking the game because if Seattle
Yeah.
wins this game, they'll probably get in anyway.
Well,
Would you agree with that?
Seattle, yeah, I mean, I was just looking at their schedule to kind of end the season here. So they have Carolina this week, and then they welcome San Francisco to town on Thursday Night Football. Then they have to go to Arrowhead, to New York, and then they wrap up the season against the Rams, where we already saw they had trouble with.
Okay. I'm just saying
Yeah,
you said New York, you said the Rams and the Rams are bad. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be in Seattle, so I do think the home crowd will play a factor there,
yeah.
but still my question for you is do you think it's worth the extra dollar of value to kind of risk the rest of the season compared to just taking Carolina money line in this game? Because I think if Seattle wins this game, they should be going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that is something to
That's my only
consider.
counterpoint.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Yeah, that's something to think about. I think what is it, plus 180? I think this line will maybe only get pushed up. We think that if more public money comes in on Seattle,
Well, you said it opened at 7. Like
yeah.
that part kind of gives me some pause there because I don't think Kenneth Walker is worth 2.5 points.
No, but I think maybe by that like that whole running back group that's compromised right now between Homer, Walker,
Could
and
be.
DJ
I'm just
Dallas as
wondering if
well.
you think running backs are worth 2.5
No,
because for me it just seems like sharp money's absolutely just poured in on Carolina.
yeah, yeah. And again, we know that the sharp money is always early and often, and then right at post as well. So
There's no way I'm laying points with Seattle, at least more than a field goal right now when they can't get a stop to save their lives.
yeah, I agree. Any player props you're looking at in this game here, Scott?
Well, you mentioned the running backs, so if Foreman is potentially out, I'll pivot and I'll take the other running back. But do you look at DJ Moore? Because I think he's in a good spot.
I think so too. I think that he did have 103 against the Broncos secondary. I'm not sure if Sertan was matched up on him or not. Trying to pull up.
That's a very impressive performance, though, because Denver secondary against the pass is really, really good.
I want to see if it was just a long pass that got him that mostly yardage,
I think
or
most of it, I think it was pretty much all in the first half. I think he got loose for like one decently long completion, but he had a touchdown
50.
later in the game anyway.
Yeah, 52 yards was a long for
But he
him.
had a touchdown no matter anyway, so he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
effective all over the field.
And they really don't really have a choice to throw to anybody else. I mean, look at the names in that receiving group: Ian Thomas, tight end; Laviska Chenault, Raheem Blackshear, Terrence Marshall,
I
Tommy
like
Tremble.
Marshall. I think they should give him
Yeah.
more run. I think he's pretty good.
Do you see his prop for DJ Moore?
For more, sorry, let me just pull that up.
Here, I got it.
I'm assuming he's going to be in the 60s or 70s.
I don't see anything for him.
I don't see any props up.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they're waiting on injury news, but I got to assume Moore's going to be somewhere in the 60s, right?
Yeah, I
60s
would
or
think so.
70s?
I would, yeah, high side 70, but I would still take the over.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for this game?
I don't want to gamble and play chicken on which receiver is going to be covered by JC Horn and bet the under because I don't know what they're going to do defensively. Sacks, maybe?
Yeah.
Take a Burton sack prop, maybe.
If you're able to find like team sacks, I think that's something they need to start putting out. It's like these sports books. Because I think that would be a problem.
There were some books that had it in years past. I don't know what happened to it, but I can't find them.
They just go to total sacks now for the game, which is unfortunate.
No respect.
Yeah.
I think Carolina's going to get at least 3 sacks in this game.
I would think so. And they don't have that out yet either. So, yeah, maybe check closer to game time. I think, yeah, Panthers, this defense, we talked about, this front seven is really good. And
they're like a slightly better version than Denver, where if they had any offense worth a damn, they'd actually be pretty good, but they just don't.
Yeah.
The defense is really good for that team, though, Carolina.
That defense is really good. I'm glad they didn't trade away Brian Burns. I know they were trying to get like at
I might have
minimum.
shipped them all for 3 first-round picks, but,
Yeah.
What were the
I
Rams
don't think
offering
anybody
him?
was willing to
Rams
offer.
offered 2 or 3. I forgot what the hell they offered.
I think they
Allegedly.
offered 2,
Okay.
but I think you're right. They probably wanted
They already gave
3
up their pick
with
for this year anyway, though, so you'd be getting a
yeah.
pick from the Rams like 3 years from now. So I can understand why they didn't take it.
Yeah, that's going to the Lions, right? In that Matthew
Yeah.
Stafford deal.
Mhm.
Yeah. Quickly, I'm trying to see what the Panthers have done defensively, but I'll try to pull that up before we end the show. All right, before we move on to the next game on the schedule, let me tell you guys about our presenting sponsor. That's WinBet. And if you're ready to win money and boost your odds, WinBet is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. We're bringing the excitement of Win Las Vegas to online sports betting and casino play. Exclusive rewards are right at your fingertips with Win Rewards on WinBet. If you're looking to get involved in the same game parlay, WinBet is your home with their WinBet Build Your Own Bet, letting you customize the bet you want to make. Great promos, odds, and payouts are happening right now at WinBet. WinBet has what you need to win. Ready to play? Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet 100 to win 100. And there's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/winbet so they know that we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. Offers subject to change. Terms and conditions at winbet.com. Must be 21 years or older and present in the state where playthrough WinBet is available. If you're somebody you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right, Scott, let's get over to the next game of the schedule. It's going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers headed to the Bay Area to take on the Brock Purdy-led San Francisco 49ers. It's another 4:25 Eastern start here for this game. And looking at the lines for this game, I'm currently seeing that just went off of my screen. Let's see here. San Francisco opened up as a 5.5-point home favorite. That number has been bet down to -3.5, currently over on WinBet. Total opened up at 37.5. That number has been pretty consistent. I'd see a 38 over at WinBet.
I love
Not
it.
much movement. Yeah,
Big
not
10
much.
Big 10 football. Love it. Let's go.
Not much movement on the total here, Scott. Looking at the injury report here. Let's start here with the road team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On their injury report, I am seeing. Let's see here. Antonio Winfield Jr. safety is questionable. He's still not participating in practice with the team as of Thursday. Vita Vea, defensive tackle, also listed as questionable. Mike Edwards, safety, hamstring, didn't practice on Wednesday. Sean Murphy Bunting also questionable, and we know Tristan Wirfs, is going to be out for this game on the offensive line there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, the big news for the San Francisco 49ers, they did lose Jimmy Garoppolo, thinking it was going to be season ending, but they did get the news that it's a 6 to 8 weeks recovery period for Jimmy G. Maybe they get him back for the divisional game or the conference championship game, but that shall be determined. As far as their official injury report, guys that are questionable is probably their best players or maybe just getting some time off. Armstead, we did see his return last week. Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey all are listed questionable for the San Francisco 49ers. But the big conversation here, Scott, is Brock Purdy, who came in last week in relief of Jimmy G, and he looked pretty damn good for a third-string quarterback out of Iowa. Put up 210 passing yards in that game. But I think the bigger conversation was what some of his teammates came out and said after the game about how he's holding himself accountable, how he went up to Brendan Ayuk and said, hey, I missed you on a couple passes, but I'm going to be better about that. But what did you kind of see out of Brock Purdy last week in relief of Jimmy G, who left with the injury?
I thought he looked solid. I watched him at Iowa State. I thought that he was pretty awful, if I'm being honest. I thought he was very bad in his senior year. And yet, I guess the perks of staying in college at the same place for several years is the fact that you have some maturity. And we saw that during the course of the game, he seemed the one word I'll use is professional about it.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything stupid. He was really, really, I'd say, quick with his decision-making. He didn't try to make any hero plays. And as you said, his interaction with Ayuk showed maturity. I messed up. I'll fix it. whatever. It's a work in progress. Let's do it. And I feel like if you're going to look for a short-term game manager, which is what he's going to be, let's be real. They're not going to let him throw the ball 30-something times in a game.
Yeah.
I do think you need to show some signs of maturity and some signs of overall experience, not just in the pros, but I just mean in general. The fact that he had 4 years of college, roughly, I think definitely helps in the situation. But when it comes down to it, we know that the Niners are going to really just rely on the ground game. Tampa's been good against the run lately, but they're going to give McCaffrey almost every touch imaginable. And we saw it as he had 80 receiving yards and he had 100-plus all-purpose yards, and he was very, very good last week. Ayuk and Sam, I know Samuel's been banged up the last couple of weeks, but he had a couple of big plays there as well. Some first down, extending drives, etc. Kittle was pretty quiet last week. We'll see what happens, but I think he's good enough to not absolutely punt you the game, which might be good enough, because if we talked about last week, Miami missing both tackles, we thought the Niners defensive front would absolutely just torture Tua, and they did. Tua was awful because he was pressured the entire game. Tampa can't block anybody either.
Yeah.
So I understand you could talk about Brady getting points and how they won a game in thrilling fashion on Monday night. They were awful. They were losing to Andy Dalton by 13 points with about 5 minutes to go in the game. And the only reason why they won is because Mark Ingram ran out of bounds.
That was a very head-scratching play.
It was one of the dumbest plays I've seen in a while, because Ingram's been in the league for about 11 years. It's really an inexcusable play. Then you had the slant pass, which was another 40 seconds off the clock because of incompletion. It made no sense. But the point is, Tampa was awful the entire game until the final 5 minutes. If Tampa had lost, let's say holding penalty on Tampa, they move them back, and they don't score a touchdown, they lose the game.
Yeah.
Are the Niners laying like 5?
I mean, this
I don't
line
think they're laying
opened up
3.
at 5.
I just don't know how many points the Niners would be laying if the Buccaneers ended up losing to the Saints.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more than 3.
At 4.5, I probably think.
That's the point. So and automatically, you can argue there's value on San Francisco because people are overreacting to a win on the score column, even though the Buccaneers deserve to lose that game entirely.
Yeah.
They lose that game 95% of the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a spot where the Buccaneers are overvalued. I'm going to lay the points here with the San Francisco 49ers. And you mentioned it, look, and they're at home. So what are they saying? That the Niners are a point better?
It's basically pick them. Usually you blindly factor home field as 3 points. So it's basically a pick.
Yeah.
On a neutral, I'm taking San Francisco.
Yeah, I am too. I think, we talked about Brock Purdy showed us a lot last week.
It's also a short week. Tampa played on Monday night.
Yeah. And now you got to travel all the way to the West Coast. I think they got.
And you have injuries in your secondary. And I'm on the Niners. I think this line is really just too low. I get the point is Purdy against Brady. Purdy's not this. He's not that. I get it. Brady hasn't been great either. And it's not even his fault. The offensive line stinks. But you have Bosa. You have Armstead. You have a lot of options. We know San Francisco can force some turnovers. Once again, the Buccaneers had 3 points with roughly 6 minutes in regulation against the Saints at home. Now you're going West Coast on a short week. I got to take the Niners.
Yeah, and you're going up against a team that we talked about over the past several weeks that doesn't give up very many points in the second half, if at all. I think last week was the first week where they allowed, I believe it was 7 points in that fourth quarter.
Hill got loose for a touchdown, I think, in the third quarter, but that was basically it.
Yeah. So again, this defense or this offensive line is going to have their hands full in this game against this pass rush with Nick Bosa, with Armstead. We saw, like you mentioned, we saw what they did against Tua last week.
I'm not sure the same can be said vice versa. Like, I don't know how good Tampa's defensive line actually is.
It's not what it is of when they won that Super Bowl.
Yeah, because Barrett's out for the year, and he was their best pass rusher. So I think San Francisco's offensive line could also dominate here. So I think that the Niners have an edge in both trenches.
Yeah, I agree. So let's lay the points here with the San Francisco 49ers. Total, rightfully so, sitting at 38. This might be like
I'm on the under.
14, 17, 10 type of final.
I have 17-10 in my head. I think this game's going to be hideous. I'm not saying because the Niners are going to win, this game's going to be good. But I think if they can run the ball, I think they'll be able to dominate up front. And once again, if you don't play prevent against Brady, he will do nothing on basically every drive. Even the final 2 drives, you had a massive pass interference penalty. Besides that, every pass was in the flats. We saw the same thing against the Rams in their comeback win. If the Niners just press the receivers and they get to Brady with a regular 4-man rush, Brady's screwed in this game. Like, I just think that the Niners should really dominate. I like the Niners. You can make an argument it might be like the Carolina game earlier this year, and they could win like 17-3. It would not surprise me if Tampa doesn't score a touchdown in this game.
Yeah. Player props we're looking at in this game, Scott?
Oh boy.
You got to look at CMC, right?
Like, I think you have to, but I don't know what to look at.
Exceptions? Potentially,
but a lot of his production was front-loaded in the first half.
Yeah, because I just feel like it'll be a lot of check.
It's 39.5. Like, I feel like that has to be an over. But you're looking at the receiving yards for Tampa, and it's like Mike Evans is 49.5. You're looking at Godwin at 58.5. It's like they really don't expect Tampa to do anything in this game.
No.
Brady on for passing yards? It's at 253.5. I get the argument is San Francisco's good against the run, and you could make a serious case that garbage time could play a factor here. I really don't think Tampa's going to move the ball. 253.5? Like, that's a lot of yards, and a lot of Brady's yards last week were in garbage time, or in comeback time, I should say.
What did he finish up with last week? Let me see.
I think he finished in like the 270s, but they had a couple of really long drives at the end.
Yeah, he had 281, but again, it was because, like you said, that he had to throw the football because they were down 13 points in that game. He had 246 against the Browns, 258 against the Seahawks, 280. And this has really been because he has to throw the football because they've been trailing in these games. So maybe pass attempts over?
Maybe. I think I'm just leaning to the under. In the full game. I don't think this is really a prop game for me.
Yeah.
If it's a total of 37, I tend to like overs more than unders in player props.
Yeah.
And it's tough when you have a total of 37. Yeah. Maybe Brady interception if you think that he'll get pressured and make one bad throw. Interception for Brady's plus 105.
I'll take that.
I mean, that's, I guess, intriguing. Purdy, I mean, it's roughly minus 110 apiece, minus 120 on the over. I don't know if I want that because I just think that they're going to run the ball a bunch and purposefully give Purdy the easiest throws imaginable.
Yeah.
I don't really have much here. I just think this game's going to be ugly, but I think the Niners win.
All right, let's get over to the last game of the night. That's going to be the Sunday night football game between the Miami Dolphins in LA to take on the Chargers. Looking at the opening line for this game, I am seeing, where did it go? This opened up as a pick for this game. That number has been bet up to -3. Starting to see some -3.5s out there as well for Miami, the road favorite here. 51.5 is the opening number on the total. That number has also been bet up to 52, currently over on WinBet. Let's take a look at the injury report here for both of these teams. I'll start here with the road team. The Miami Dolphins saw last week that they were missing 2 of their starting offensive linemen in that game. Trying to get the update here. Give me 1 second. I don't see them on the injury report, so they're probably going to be back for this game. If they're not listed, well, Austin Jackson was put on the injured reserve, so he's going to be out. And then Armstead is also, questionable as of December 6th. So we'll wait for an update on those guys. But other than that, no, we did see Tua maybe injured or is injured with an ankle injury. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. Other than that, pretty clean injury report for the Miami Dolphins. And then for the home team, the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's see here. Dervin James, day-to-day going into week 14, according to head coach Brandon Staley. Mike Williams was a limited participant at practice on Wednesday. No shock there. That is pretty much it here, Scott. So last week, Dolphins, obviously we just talked about it, dropped the game against the San Francisco 49ers, 33-17. I did see a note that did stay on the West Coast instead of traveling all the way back home.
Makes sense.
Which makes a lot of sense, right? Because you're all going all the way back to South Beach and don't want to travel all the way back to the West Coast. The Los Angeles Chargers are also coming off of a loss They lost to the Las Vegas Raiders 27-10 in a division game last week. And now Miami Dolphins are still in a fight, obviously, for that AFC East division. Can't drop any more games here. What are you thinking about this game here, Scott? The Dolphins as a 3.5-point favorite.
I'm going to take the Dolphins. Waddle, I know, is banged up, but he did come back into the game. I think he caught one pass and then was like, I can't be out here. I'm done. But the fact that it's Sunday night means he'll have a little bit more time in terms of hours to be healthy. I think he's going to play. But it's mostly coaching. Yeah. I just think McDaniels coaches circles around Staley, and I don't think it's close. I think McDaniels is a tremendous coach. And I was a big fan of the hire when they made it. I thought that he was unique. I thought that he was very, very creative, which is something you don't exactly see much from play callers nowadays. But I like how he knows what Tua is and builds his offense around the strengths of his team instead of forcing his players into doing something they might not be good at because that's his system. Yeah. I just think Miami has done a very good job of creating an actual just overall offensive system that really plays to the strengths of their guys. And I don't think that the Chargers do that at all. I think the Chargers do the opposite, actually. I think they have a certain system and they say, listen, this is what we're going to do. Meanwhile, you're looking over at the roster and you say, maybe Eckler should blindly get the ball maybe 20-something times a game because he's your best player by far. And they don't do it. They don't give Eckler the ball nearly enough, even though you're missing a bunch of playmakers all the time. You've had so many injuries, and you look at Eckler and go, give him the ball. Like, he's clearly your best option. I just think that McDaniels is a much better coach. And if you can make an argument that these teams are close based on injury news, first of all, I don't think they're close. I think Miami is the better team. But I just think that McDaniels is going to have a good game plan in place against a pretty underwhelming Chargers defense. And I think Herbert's going to be running around, throwing it to random guys like he usually is, and that usually results in a close loss. I see a one-possession game, competitive late. Give me Miami by 7.
I agree with you.
I think McDaniels,
though, I don't
know if you agree with everything I said there, but I think McDaniels is a really good head coach.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. And you've seen the video clips that have been circulating on social media. I think this was last week where he admitted that he made a mistake.
People like
him. Yeah, and he seems like a player's coach, and these players enjoy playing for him. And like you mentioned, he came from the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan tree, quote unquote, if you want to call it that. But I think you nailed it when you said that he's tailoring this offense around the strengths of Tua and the playmakers that he has, right? Because this team has speed with Jalen Waddle, with Tyreek Hill, that they've been able to utilize that all season long. And that's the success that they've had this season. And again, yeah, it's a huge coaching mismatch in this game between McDaniels and Brian Staley. So
I don't think Staley does anything well. I mean, you're looking at
this has to be his last season, right?
You're looking at what Brandon Staley does, and you can make an argument that maybe the owner and people are just sold on him, but I don't get it. He was known as being the ultra-aggressive coach, and that was kind of his shtick. He hasn't really done it as much this season, and when he has, he's done it at really stupid times, like he did against the Browns earlier this year, which worked out because the Browns missed a game-winning field goal attempt. He got lucky there, but I think it has to be his last year, but they're still injured. And I just think that after a loss to a good San Francisco team, which we both predicted, I think that the Niners are just a bad matchup for the Dolphins. They're physical. They can dominate on the defensive line. They have a good secondary, and they want to run the ball. The Chargers want to do none of those things.
Yeah.
So I just think that the Dolphins are a bad matchup for Los Angeles because the Dolphins have an identity. I don't think the Chargers have an identity, do they? Besides Herbert, please bail us out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, like they've dealt with a lot of injuries over the past couple of years.
They haven't adapted to anything, though.
Yeah, and they had some guys when Keenan Allen was out and Mike Williams out with Carter and Josh Palmer to kind of compensate for it. But it seems like okay, are we a pass first team? Or are we a run first team? Like, what do we want to do? And that's been a lot of the talent is on this team. There's no question.
My point is the play calling is the same. And we've seen Miami, even against Houston or some other teams, they're not afraid to run the ball a lot if you won't stop the run. They'll adjust on the fly. The Chargers seem every game to just give the ball to Herbert, ignore Eckler, and whichever receiver is healthy, they're going to chuck it downfield. they don't waver from that actual mindset ever. And I think that's a serious problem.
I think this is this game is it for the Chargers if they want to even have a chance of making the playoffs.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago before they played the Niners and before they played the Chiefs. We said bet the Chargers to miss the playoffs at 5-3.
Yeah. And I don't see an up. I do. It's still at minus 185
to make
to miss.
To miss, yeah. To make when we took them to miss, I think it was around like was it plus
closer
money
to it was like plus 105 or even money at the time. I would still lay a minus 185 price on that.
I think they're going to lose this game, and the rest of the schedule is. I mean, they played the Chiefs twice. They got that out of the way. I'm trying to think of who else they have to play.
Yeah, but you look at the other divisions, right? Baltimore and Cincinnati are 8-4.
The AFC East is an absolute just crap.
Yeah, and you might get 3 teams out of the AFC East. Well, you get the division obviously, and then you'll get maybe the 2 wild. Miami's going to make the playoffs. It's a question of if the Jets are going to be able to win some games and get into the playoffs. But Cincinnati and Baltimore both at 8-4. Let's just say the Chargers lose this game, the Raiders win this week. Both of those teams will be at 6-7.
To go through the actual schedule for the Chargers, they play the Dolphins, obviously. They play the Titans at home the week after.
Okay.
I mean, I know Henry's been bad lately, but you have one of the worst run defenses in the league. That's definitely not a guarantee. You're playing at the Colts. Colts aren't good, but it wouldn't shock me if Taylor had a good game against them. And you play the Rams at home and you play the Broncos on the road. I mean, the schedule is easy the last 3 weeks, so they should be easy. Yeah. But, I mean, as you said before, like if they lose this game to Miami, they could miss while winning 10 games. Yeah. It's possible. They could go 10-7 and still miss the playoffs. So
that's not going to be a cakewalk going into Indy on Monday night. And like you
I hope that game gets flexed. I pray that game gets flexed. But I'm just saying, I think it's a tough spot to go to Indy anytime, no matter how bad they might be.
Yeah, and then obviously, like you mentioned, welcoming Derrick Henry to town, and we know what he does against bad defenses. But yeah, we're laying the minus 3.5 here with the Dolphins, -4, whatever the number may be. The updated number right now is over on WinBet. -3 is what I'm seeing for the Dolphins in this game. Total sitting at 52 in this game here, Scott. I think we might see some fireworks here in this game, but what do you think about the total?
I got to be on the over. I don't like either defense. Miami's offense, I still think is good. I just have to. People on Twitter thought that I was like a Tua hater because I roasted him earlier this year, and I roasted him after the Niner game. My main argument's simple. He's really, really good against bad defenses. Yeah. Against good defenses, he's not typically that great. Yeah. The Chargers' defense, not great. I think Tua's going to have a pretty good game here, and Miami's defense isn't very good. So I think both quarterbacks should have good games. I just think that Miami will be able to exploit this Chargers defense more frequently because they actually have creativity with the decision making. So I think that the game's going to go over. I just think Miami might score 30 points.
Yeah, that was going to say, I was like, one of my favorite plays in this game is probably the team total over for the Dolphins. 27 is what I'm currently seeing. Starting to see some 27.5s as well. But I think, they'll be able to move this ball effectively against this against this Chargers defense like we talked about. I think Tyreek Hill will have a big game in this game. He's familiar with this team, being in that AFC West division when he was with the Chiefs. So, I like the over. I like the Dolphins team total in this game here as well. Player props looking at this game here, Scott?
You mentioned Tyreek. I think Tyreek's going to walk into like 120 in this game. I really just don't know how he's not going to, especially with Waddle playing potentially, but clearly not being at 100%. Do you think there's a snap count there? Maybe.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they still have
Sherfield.
Yeah, Sherfield. That was the name I was looking for. Yeah.
He had the 75-yarder to start the game. I don't think he did anything after that. But
no.
I mean, Tyreek's at 96.5. So you're kind of just expecting him to go for 100, which I think he will.
Yeah.
Besides that, though, I don't really see much.
Longest completion for Tua?
Yeah, I'd look for the over there. You have a lot of options. For the ground game, I got to assume Mostert will get most of the touches. I see him at 47.5.
Okay.
Sure, I'll take that over. I think that's definitely worth some value, but it's mostly just going to be involving Miami's offense, just having creative ways to exploit this defense.
Yeah, I agree. All right, anything else for this game before we get into our lock and dog?
Probably pass attempts for Herbert. Miami's actually good against the run.
Yeah. And I think if they're going to be playing from behind as well. see what Justin Herbert has kind of done over the past couple of weeks or throwing the football because God forbid the Chargers actually try to run the football with or get Austin Eckler involved in the run game. 47 over the last 2 weeks each. But they
I
were
don't see
trailing
any
into those
attempts
games.
listed for Herbert right now, but whenever it is
Okay.
posted, I think he's going to attempt at least 40 passes.
It's funny that they list the longest completions, but they don't list pass attempts or pass completions. Tua is at 35 and a half, but they don't have one for Justin Herbert yet.
If I had to guess, I'll say like 37 and a half, 38 and a half.
Yeah. All right, Scott, let's get into our lock and dog here for the afternoon games here in NFL Week 14. I'll let you lead it off, man. What's your lock and dog?
All right. So for my lock, oh boy, I have two choices really from the same game. The question is, which one do I want to take? You know what? I'm just going to take the under. Give me the under 38, as you said before, into that Niners and Buccaneers game. I thought about taking a team total under with Tampa. I thought about taking the Niners. I think the Niners will win the game. But I really just see a slugfest here. Tampa defensively is still good. I still think Tampa is going to be able to force punts and to force some long drives. I also think San Francisco is going to be very conservative and careful with the play calling. But I don't think Tampa is going to move the ball in this game. So I like the under. There are a couple ways to get there. Kind of like that Monday night game against the Saints and why I like the under. Either one team does nothing offensively, you have two shots at that, or both teams stink, and you have a massive, just really hideous game here. Both could either could happen. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. We said this game could end like 17-10. I don't think they're going to get to 30. I'm going with the under.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. What do you got for your dog?
For my dog, I'm going to take Carolina. I feel like we're going to both take Carolina here, but I really like the plus 170, give or take. I think it's a good spot. And the fact that the line has dropped 2.5 points, the fact that these Seahawks might be using basically a practice squad running back as their starter this week is definitely concerning. Their defense isn't good. Carolina's off a bye, and they have a good pass rush. I think it's actually a good matchup for Carolina.
Yep, I'm right there with you. That was going to be my dog play of the week. I think everything else, we think that the favorite should win the game between the Niners, the Dolphins, and the Chiefs. So, yeah, Carolina Panthers plus 170 for me as well as my dog. For my lock, it's got to be the Niners, man. I think we could double dip in the same game. I also do like the Dolphins. You know what? I'll give out Dolphins team total over 27.5 as my lock. Change it up a little bit. I just think the speed, we talked about how bad this Chargers defense is both on the ground and through the air. I think that this is going to be one of those games where we see Tua throw for 300 plus yards and Tyreek Hill gets loose against this Chargers defense, the pass defense. And we've seen him do that when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs in that division for so many years. I think this is going to be an opportunity where they want to flex their muscles a little bit after getting limited after that opening touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers. Weather's not a concern. You're indoors. I have fast receivers. Hopefully Waddle's able to be more effective than he was last week against the 49ers. So Dolphins team total over 27.5 as my lock. And then both Scott and I are on the Carolina Panthers plus 4.5 and then plus 170 as our dog for this NFL Week 14 afternoon game schedule. Scott, that's going to do it, my man. Anything else we forgot to mention for these games or anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, I'm just a little bit upset that we couldn't exactly cover the Cowboys-Texans game because I really want to talk about a game with a spread of 18. But unfortunately, that's a 1 o'clock game, so that's against the rules.
Yeah. 18, yeah, that number's all the way up to
That's
18.
so funny.
Hey, Davis Mills back at the starting quarterback realms, my man.
That's actually a big deal because Allen was one of the worst starting quarterbacks I've seen in a while.
He's been bad. It was really bad over the past week. Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know how he's on a roster right now, but
can they write him into the XFL draft? Is it too late for that or no?
It's never too late.
Okay.
We can make a phone call to The Rock and see if you can get him in there.
That works.
All right, yeah. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the NFL Gambling Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow for the player props for the Propcast. Look out for our NFL Week 14 player props with myself and Rod. And again, back next week, recapping with Rod and Ryan. So again, NFL Gambling Podcast in full force. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Twitter at SGPNNFL. We put up our weekly power rankings and our picks every single week between the about 8 to 9 hosts that we have on the NFL Gambling Pod. But yeah, definitely look out for that. Make sure to follow Scott on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. We'll be back next week as usual. Till then, good luck with your picks. Let's break these books off and let it ride.